Happy New Year and welcome to the Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians. I'm Erwin Cito, four-time Realtor of the Year, 20-year Ontario landlord who formerly had an 8-figure portfolio locally. Why formerly? Because I'm selling Ontario in Canada where the economy is not doing so great, and I'm choosing to invest somewhere where the economy is growing faster, somewhere landlord friendly for value and positive cash flow. Personally, Cherry, my accountant wife, and I want our side hustle to be less effort and less risk. On this show, I bring you strategies, stories, and experts to help you build wealth, avoid costly mistakes, and reach financial freedom faster in Canada, in US, and beyond. Let's get started. Before I introduce you to our guest, I want to share that we just got back from a family trip from Asia. Specifically, we covered 3 different cities in Japan, Shanghai, China, and Hong Kong, China, and it gave me a lot of time to reflect. We were gone for about 3.5 weeks. I talk a lot about diversification on the show, usually in the investing context, of course, diversification of location, because we all know real estate is location, location, location. I talk about currency, leveraged stock market investments, and fixed income style insurance strategies. But this trip reminded me there's another kind of a diversification that matters just as much when it comes to the quality of our lives, where and how we live. Now, no country is perfect. Canada does do a lot of things well. We Canadians, statistically, en masse, we are happier than many people, especially in the places that I visited. We make more money than most people in Asia, for example. And again, in general, we are wealthier than most in the world. But 2 things really stood out in this trip: winter weather and public transportation. Something we're not so good at in Canada. Weather we can't control. Now, I don't enjoy wasting time sitting in car traffic, something we know all too well living in and around Toronto. And I generally appreciate the efficiency, speed, and value of world-class public transit in cities like Tokyo, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. A simple example: Hong Kong's version of the TTC is cheap, fast, reliable, publicly traded. It's profitable. The company even pays, called the MTR for short, it even pays a dividend to its shareholders. Again, it's publicly traded, so anyone can become a shareholder. And the majority shareholder is the government. For example, they have a subway line called the South Island Line. It broke ground in 2011, which is around the same time as Toronto's Eglinton LRT by the TTC. The Hong Kong project had a tunnel through, was 5 kilometers long and had to go through a mountain. Toronto, they run largely along an existing road. Hong Kong finished their project in roughly half the time as Toronto's project, which is still ongoing, at about 1/3 the cost. So again, going through a mountain costs 1/3 the cost of going through a primarily surf existing road. Again, the Eglinton LRT is still not open. So I think we all know quality public transportation directly affects people's day-to-day quality of life, and I wish I had more of that in Canada, so I didn't have to sit in a car, let alone own a car, which is really expensive. Now, same story with weather. In southern China, where we spent some time, specifically in Hong Kong, where a lot of my family is from, and a lot of my family still is. December is very comfortable. It's actually a pretty much perfect weather. It's quite sunny and 20 to 24 degrees Celsius every day. Maybe you need a light jacket at night. But otherwise it's really nice, especially compared to I'm staring out the window and it's -6, feels like -10, and it snowed this morning, causing all sorts of havoc for traffic. Again, nowhere's perfect. In southern China, it's also uncomfortably hot and humid from spring, summer, and fall, aka most of the year. And those months happen to conveniently overlap with what I consider some of the best weather in the world, which is in Toronto during spring, summer, and fall, which is perfect for golf and pool season. Now, I'm not particularly optimistic about major improvements to weather or infrastructure and public transit here in Canada anytime soon, and that's okay. I'm just one person. I'm only going to worry about what I can control. I can't control government systems or timelines, and that includes the Ontario government and the Landlord Tenant Board and the Residential Tenancy Act. I can't control it. My mindset is actually why I became a real estate investor in the first place back in 2005. I never wanted my future to depend entirely on decisions outside my control, like, for example, my employer or the government and CBP, for example. When something becomes harder than it needs to be, my solution has always been simple: adapt, diversify, and go where things work better, both for lifestyle and investment. And again, like I started off with real estate. Now, I'm not an expert on Venezuela, but what I did know was that the current US administration is pro energy sector and oil sector, and also Canada is trending as a weaker economy. So hence I wanted my money somewhere where it would grow faster with more ease. Now again, living in Canada is quite nice, especially if you can afford it. From spring, summer, and fall. Hence, we choose to still live here because we can't afford it, but my investments can't afford to be here. As my kids get older as well, spending more time in Asia in the winter months is something that Cherry and I are interested in. Again, better weather, that's a better transit system, easier day-to-day living. It's something we're strongly considering. It's not about leaving Canada behind, it's about having options. Speaking about having options, this week's guest is Thomas Lorini. He is Toronto born, but because his wife's family's from California, he chose to move to California. Now he's California based and he's a cross-border real estate expert, multifamily expert. And he's Canadian. I've known Thomas since 2008-ish when we met at the Real Estate Investment Network. And he was and he'll talk today about how he was a local investor, including in Hamilton. And we discussed why more and more Canadians are looking beyond our increasingly constrained market, how he believes the US apartment building market can provide more recession-resistant cash flow, and what investors need to understand about how to do it properly. If you ever thought about diversifying outside of Canada and the argument couldn't be stronger than ever to do so without speculation or guesswork, this conversation will resonate. You can connect with Thomas at borderlesswealth.ca. Again, that's borderlesswealth.ca, or his investor website, venturecocapital.com. Links will be in the show notes. Please enjoy the show. Thomas, thanks for passing up on the beach to record a podcast with me. Thanks
to be here.
So much for doing this. Thank you. And I've known you for over 10 years, but for the listener who doesn't know who you are, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. First off, great to be here, Erwin. And absolutely. So born and raised in Toronto, Canada, background mechanical engineering, got into real estate back in 2010, 2011. I think that's when we initially connected through the RAIN network. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't raised in real estate. Ultimately, I just started buying rental properties on the side while I was working in the manufacturing industry. And then, fast forward, my wife's American. We got married. She moved to Canada. So the first 5 years of our marriage was in Canada. And then, we'd visit her family in Southern California. So, several years later, applied for my green card, ended up getting it. And then we moved to the U.S. About 10 years ago. So around 2014, 2015, and been here since. But, my whole family's still in the Oakville area. So I travel back and forth quite a bit. I'm part of the WealthGenius network as well. So definitely brings me back and forth 3, sometimes 4 times a year. But yeah, settled now in Irvine, California. So I've got the good weather in my favor, and but I've transitioned now from I still own assets in Canada, in Ontario, but really focused on the U.S. market over the last 10 years, and I've been really working with a lot of Canadians, helping them, mentoring them, coaching them on how to get going on investing in the U.S.
That's a great summary. It's like you've given this before. Now, Thomas, I didn't know you're an engineer, but could you bring us back to, and actually what made me think about that as well is there's a lot of engineers who are real estate investors.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the analytical mindset or what it is. I mean, you're absolutely right.
What is it? What made you, what analysis pointed you towards making real estate as a main part of your real estate, part of your investing?
Yeah, I mean, I think once we're in industry for a while, and I mean, almost 18 years. Straight out of college, pretty much got a job in the automotive industry doing quality control, then kind of progressed into management, and then I settled into a nice, comfy position and looked around. And everyone's like 20-year tenure, 15-year tenure. I'm like, all right, so I mean, this is it. I'm set here, looking forward to my 2.5% raise every year, and that's when I decided there has to be more, and I always was interested in real estate, read the books, right? Got motivated, but it really took me to get into the right group. And once I joined Rain, it was like, all right, this is it. This is my family, if you will. And then quickly started, acquiring assets over time. But in terms of engineering, I don't know if it's from the the logic. We're very systematic, very analytical. Obviously there's numbers in real estate when you're analyzing the opportunities. But I got to a point where it didn't matter how much effort I put into it. I was kind of like stuck in that middle management position. So I could have just cruised, for the next 20 years and have a kind of comfy, safe job. But like there was something inside of me just, I wanted to push my potential further. And that's what real estate offers. There's really no limits in real estate. There's so many sections and opportunities. And once I kind of dived in that world, it got exciting. And at the same time, I just saw and looked around, the potential was massive. I still remember the first person I walked up to, having a conversation. He was like, I only own 7 properties. And from someone who wasn't in real estate, I'm like, only 7 properties? Like it was mind blowing. I'm like, you're okay with 7 mortgages? I'm stressing over one, right? So
Like most
definitely,
Canadians, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's where it was like, all right. I mean, I need to learn how to do this, and then from there, the rest is history. But yeah, a lot of engineers, and maybe it's potentially that aspect. They're in the industry. They realize, all right, kind of cap at a certain level, and then what's the next? And then for those who are more entrepreneurial spirit, have a little bit more of a drive, or want to kind of push the boundaries, that's where kind of real estate offers.
And then what did you start investing in? I think
Yeah,
the
I
listener
mean,
get a bit of understanding of your journey, what you've experienced yourself, and then what the other side looks like.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I kind of start off with a house hack. I owned a townhouse up in Aurora, and I rented out the basement to a guy, and I was like, oh, this guy's paying my mortgage. So that was kind of like my first experience of being a landlord. From there, once I joined Rain, quickly realized, all right, I've got a considerable amount of equity in my principal residency. So pulled a HELOC, and then looked around. I mean, the GTA was still relatively expensive, and Hamilton was on my radar. At that time, if you recall, Rain would do top 10 cities across Ontario, and Hamilton would just continue to come up. And obviously, you know Hamilton better than me. And that's kind of where I explored. I pretty much bought a duplex as my very first official rental property. And then, from an affordability aspect, I mean, I didn't have that much capital, so I acquired a duplex, and then it was a single family home, and then from there a couple of condos, and then a semi. So I kind of acquired whatever I could afford.
Mhm.
It started off maybe one property a year for those first 4 or 5 years. So when we moved, I probably had about 5, 6 properties in Ontario when we moved into the US.
And was it a good experience, bad experience? Something you,
Oh, you're saying the investments in Hamilton?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, at that time, you're acquiring properties for 250,000 for a single family home. I mean, those are numbers that just, you can't find that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, duplex for 225 type of thing. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
was it
so
a
we're
good
talking about like
experience?
2011, 2012.
Yeah,
What are we talking
2011,
about?
exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a good time to get in, but still, when you don't know, there's still there's fear that plays into it, right? And I kind of self-managed everything. So I'm dealing with tenants,
You're in
learning on the
Aurora.
fly.
You,
Yeah, I'm
you're
driving back and forth. I'm
self-managed
doing
enough.
the Kijiji ads. I'm driving all the way to Hamilton. I apparently had 10 people booked. Nobody shows up, so it's like waste half a day. And I'm like, this sucks. So it was a challenge. And then you put people inside finally, and then you're dealing with tenant issues, complaints, and that sort of thing. Maintenance and all the good stuff that real estate offers. So was it a good experience looking back? Yeah, I mean, it was. This is what my journey started in that aspect, and learning things. Eventually, now I've progressed into larger assets and have
Mhm.
property managers in place.
Mhm.
But I kind of looking back, I'm glad I kind of went through that process because I really understand things, at a deeper level.
Mhm. Yeah,
Understand
you
how
get
to,
your hands dirty. You did it from the ground
yeah,
up.
exactly. From screening to, property maintenance and all the things, challenges. I mean, we probably all have war stories of of real estate, and sometimes I joke around. I mean, I post it online, like just like kind of like landlord, nightmares, but it's true. I mean, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with housing, so there's all sorts of things that you just got to be prepared to face. But looking back, I'm glad. I mean, I'm happy I've transitioned into real estate full time. And I mean, again, just looking forward and dealing with whatever challenges present themselves.
So I checked Google Maps. Aurora to Hamilton would be an hour 16 drive each way.
407 was my friend back then.
Oh, I'm sure those 407 bills weren't your friend.
No, 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 definitely not.
So now bring us to today, present day. What does your investing look like today?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we moved 10 years ago. So I started to explore the US market. But you guys need to understand, when I moved to the US, I didn't know anybody. I wasn't in the system. I had no credit. I had no tax returns. So it wasn't like just press and go. I mean, it took time for me to integrate. It started taking time for me to build those relationships. So I was still doing deals in Canada for the first few years living in the US. And then fast forward, getting into different network events and meetups, I started connecting with other investors, and I realized there are other markets outside of California. For those of you who don't know, I mean, it's no surprise, California is a high price market, similar to Toronto. So for me, it was more of a lateral move from the affordability standpoint. Like Toronto, GTA is relatively expensive. Moved to Orange County, similar price points, similar
Hmm.
Cost of living.
And
So
tenant rates, are they similar
very
between
similar.
Ontario and Canada?
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
Rent control. I mean,
You
I would
gained
probably
nothing.
say no, absolutely. The rent control, caps and so forth. You just can't evict people, that sort of thing. So very, very similar, very similar. It took some time for me to realize, all right, there are other markets to explore, and that's where I met an investor. He took me to Ohio, and from there, I was just like, it was an eye opener. I mean, the cost of properties there are probably like an eighth of the cost of properties in California. Then you've got the landlord-friendly climate where you can evict people within weeks. You can raise rents to whatever you want. There's no limits. So my very first property was a single family home that paid 80 grand that rented for $1,000 a month. So that
Mm.
was me just dabbling, my first property in the U.S. And then from there I was like, okay, I was hooked. So I started creating a team. I went initially with a single family route, but then I quickly realized, I need to level up. Just kind of having all these single family spread out was challenging. I know it's definitely something that many investors kind of they grow a portfolio in that aspect. There's pros and cons. I mean,
Mm.
I'm not saying don't invest in single family homes, but I was definitely looking to level up and start creating a larger portfolio. So over the last 4 or 5 years, I've kind of really kind of that pivoted into multifamily. So I've kind of sold off several of my smaller assets in Canada. I still own a few more out there, and even the smaller stuff here in the U.S. kind of sold those off, and now we've got a bunch of multifamilies in the Ohio market predominantly. So we're pushing about 150 units right now in that Ohio market, and combination of like 10, 20, 38 unit buildings, and it's yeah. I mean, pros and cons. Obviously there's different sorts of challenges, but the multifamily aspect and the strategy really focusing on value add where we're acquiring properties in general between 45, 46,000 a door till about, pushing 60,000 a door. So
Mhm.
that's kind of our typical buy box. Most buildings, 20 plus units is really kind of where we're looking at, where we could, add that value and then force that appreciation. So we've been able to do that, repeatedly over the last, 3, 4 years.
Mhm.
And even this year alone, acquired a 36 unit and an 11 unit. So that's kind of like my focus, and I do partner with a lot of Canadians. A lot of my network is back in Canada, back in Ontario, friends, family, colleagues, looking to diversify. So I'm not opposed, and I want to make sure your audience is clear. I'm not opposed to don't invest in Canada, but definitely need to explore the U.S. Right? It's just like a country 10 times the size. You've got 50 different states, which are literally like 50 different countries. So you've got more opportunities. And when you realize the landlord laws and price points, all that good stuff, and even the asset class, the markets I'm investing in, the buildings exist, right? Um, so it just really kind of opens up a whole new world for opportunities.
Mhm.
So a lot of Canadians are partnering up with me, and it's been good.
So just want to rewind. You mentioned buy box, but and there's no right or wrong. I think almost every investment there's a right person for it. I heard a gentleman who had a very large exit recently, and he was talking more about planning. So I just want some people might listen to this in the new year, so it's appropriate time for like New Year's
Sure.
resolutions. Uh, One has to ask themselves the question: how much do I want to work? How much do I want to make? What
Yes.
is the legacy I want to leave in general, or leave to the kids? And like for example, you're a full time investor. I'm a side hustle real estate investor, which is why I prefer single family homes because it's boring, easy, and I can outsource everything. Versus you are on site
I'm
full
on
time.
site probably 3 times a year, three, four
Yeah, yeah,
times a year.
yeah.
But definitely, there's a management aspect of it, right?
Hmm, hmm,
Where I'm on calls weekly with my team
hmm.
through, videos and emails and phone calls, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's not a hands-off approach. It's
4 hour
definitely
work
full.
week. No, someone lied to you too. They lied to me.
uh, yeah, yeah, definitely not 4 hour work week. But like I mean, I balance my time from managing the portfolio through my company Ventricle Capital to coaching, which is basically definitely a huge component of what I do now.
Mhm.
And I'm a licensed agent here too, so I do help people locally and get into properties as well.
Now, I know you mentioned that you don't tell Canadians not to invest in America, but just to highlight two things, like Ohio has two monstrous level investments. Like one's Intel, like that's enormous, and the other one's Honda, I believe. And that's just the two off my top of my head, and between the two of them, that's like what 12, $15 billion. And I think just those two projects alone is more than all of Canada, if
Right.
we exclude
I
any
joke.
pipelines.
Right. I
Excluding
mean, I joke around. Like you think of Cleveland, Ohio, and you're like, what's Cleveland? But if Cleveland was in Canada, it'd be the second largest city in the country
in population.
in population. There's about
Okay,
2.1 million people in the greater Cleveland area.
right. So that's bigger than
So,
Ottawa. Yeah.
and Cleveland ranks like what, like 50th largest city? Like it's not like top 10 or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah,
And they
from a
have an NFL team.
population,
We don't.
that too. And they have no traffic. That's another thing I like about Cleveland. I go there, drive around midday, no traffic. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. They have a baseball team. Yeah, oh wait,
Yep.
no, they renamed it. I was gonna say Indians. That's
Yes,
probably
yes.
racist too.
Guardians.
And the Browns and the Cavaliers. Like
Yes.
Canada has
Yes.
only one baseball team, one basketball team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Columbus has a hockey team.
Yes. Yes.
And so, why did you choose Ohio? Because, like, there's lots of
Many
you
places.
flew over a lot of good markets to get
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. And it wasn't because I didn't explore other places. So I initially bought a property out in North Carolina, Wilmington,
Okay,
and
okay,
that was a good market. Um,
probably still is.
yeah, I
North
mean
Carolina's tons of investment.
that market's got a lot of growth over the last 5 years. Um, so traditionally, Canadians tend to go to Florida. I don't think it's any secret.
Nope.
And besides, Florida, there's Texas, and then there's Arizona. Those are usually the top three markets, and not just for Canadians, but investors in general. And during COVID, we had huge influx, right? In migration of people going there, so the price points were just rapidly increasing.
Hmm.
And what happened I actually traveled about 3, 4 times to Florida specifically looking for deals, and things weren't penciling out unless you ran like short-term rental through the property. I mean, with traditional rentals, it just wouldn't cash flow. And then as interest rates spiked, it just really didn't pencil out. And then now fast forward to like the last year or so, we've seen a significant slowdown in people moving there, and people actually now realizing, especially in the last year, with the economy and the change and the affordability aspect, people are looking at other markets. What we have seen over the last 2-3 years is the investor pool has really pivoted and start exploring markets which are much more affordable, and that brings attention to the Midwest. Midwest, where predominantly was more cash flow, no appreciation. Looking at properties over the last 30, 40 years, price points relatively flat. But, because of the change in the overall climate of things, we've seen significant growth. So even in the last 4 years, I've seen, almost double-digit growth, fluctuate between 7 to 12% appreciation in my market in Cleveland. We've seen rents grow rapidly as well. And why is that? Again, the affordability is a huge thing. The cost of everything has gone up crazy. I think we can all agree with that. So when you have markets where you can still find $100,000 home, I mean, people are like, okay, I could afford there. So even a $60,000, you compare to like $60,000 salary, $100,000 home versus making like $110,000, but you're paying like $800,000 for the home, right? Big difference. So that really got my attention. Also, you don't have a lot of the natural disasters, right? You don't have the hurricanes, the fires, which you have on either side of the country. So the insurance aspect, is much more in check. I know plenty of people in Florida, they don't even have property insurance because, it's just so expensive or they can't even get it. So that's a real factor in consideration when
The
you're
term is
analyzing.
self-insured, as in you're paying for any damages yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
As in you don't have
absolutely.
insurance. It's
Yeah,
all
you
out
don't
of
have insurance.
pocket.
Yeah, and that's massive. I mean, the liability exposure that you have, especially when you have tenants, right? It's one thing your own home don't have coverage, but then when you bring in like, all these investors, I mean, there's huge liability to, concern. So that's why I've really been focused on Ohio. Its proximity also to the GTA, right? I'm from GTA. A lot of my network and resources are in the GTA area. It's only a what 4-hour drive between Toronto and Cleveland. So to get into the Ohio market, it's not that far distance wise. So a lot of investors are willing to drive there to kind of check on different opportunities, different deals. And I mean, I've got contractors who are driving to do some work for me from Canada to service my properties. So it's been beneficial for a number of reasons. And then I mean, I'm mainly focused on Cleveland, but you've got, like you mentioned, Columbus. That's a huge market.
Yeah,
I've
where
seen
Intel's
even
plant is, yeah.
significant appreciation. I kind of dived in Cleveland because the price points were more attractive, whereas Columbus, you're talking like similar rent rates, but the price points is almost double.
Yeah.
But newer
A lot more
asset
white collar,
class,
isn't it too? Well,
yeah,
that's the capital
exactly.
as well. So you have more government, and again,
Yes,
Intel is
and
there, so like
schools.
very white collar.
Yep, and you've got the university as well in Columbus. So a little more growth, a little bit newer, I would say, the city in general, development. And you also, don't forget Cincinnati. So those three cities, within a few hour drive between each other. And Ohio in general, the population of Ohio, I think it's number 5, the most populous state in the country. So you've got a lot of people. So all those factors combined, and then finally the assets. I mean, you drive through Cleveland, you're going to see multifamily everywhere, right? So that going back over the last, through the industrial, I don't want to say revolution, but through all the industrial period, early 1900s going into like 40s, 50s, and 60s, you've got everything from duplexes to apartments all across the city and the suburbs. Versus other cities, you go through and they just don't have the asset class. So, something to consider. So all those factors combined has just led me there, and I really decided at some point to kind of like own into one market. I've owned properties in several different markets, right? It was more like opportunistic. However, I mean, I got an eightplex out in Ottawa. That's the only property I own out there, right? It's much more difficult to manage a property, one property in a market versus having a huge footprint where people take you serious. You're going to get much better service, and you can actually establish a team. Versus that one property, it's like I call a contractor, they're not going to take you serious. Oh, okay, yeah, we'll think about it, type of thing, right? Versus going deep and having a solid team in place from a management standpoint, but also from an opportunities as well, where I'm getting kind of inflow of leads from brokers and my network from the property managers and so forth were sending me deals because they knew now I have a presence there. They know I'm serious and established, and I've got the resources and bandwidth to do the deals there.
Yeah, it's old school. Oh, and also we're both rain people, so we're old school. Focus, area specialist.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think some people have
Yep.
forgotten that. Sadly, a lot of people have been burnt on that too. When they go expand to like New Brunswick or Saskatoon, I can't think of anyone who did well versus how many people got burnt.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ohio. Ohio population's like 11.7 million,
Okay.
so that's bigger than Quebec. So
There you
that would
go.
be the second largest province in Canada.
Yeah.
Ontario's 16 million. So yeah, wow, that's a lot of people.
A lot of people, and people don't realize that. And then the average home is like, in general, is under $200,000, right, across the board. So again, population, affordability, the asset class, proximity to, GTA, those are my main reasons.
Now you coach a lot of Canadians too. What are their concerns about investing in the U.S.?
Yeah, great question. I think for the most part, Canadians are concerned about taxation,
Hmm.
the protection aspect, the liability, and then financing. Those are the three biggest things. One, and then following all that is kind of
Hmm.
which market to invest in.
Right.
But
Right.
my whole premise is like we can get your questions answered. I kind of lead that whole conversation with Canadians are the number one foreign investors in the U.S. So it's not like we're reinventing a wheel. It's not
Yeah.
like you're going to be the very first Canadian to venture into the U.S. and buy a property. So because of that, there's a lot of systems already in place, and just having the right support system, right, the right cross-border accountant, the right cross-border attorney, and then having the financing companies and support to help you get the financing that you need. So yeah, I mean, it starts with the conversation with the right CPA on how to structure, and that's going to come down to what are your goals. Looking to have a vacation home, or really create and establish a sizable portfolio. Are you going to do it alone? Are you going to do it with partners? All these questions are going to come up, and from there, start putting in place the right structure. Many Canadians hear about LLC, which is a limited liability corporation, which is great. U.S. investors, utilize those all the time, but doesn't work great for Canadians to own one directly because of the differences between the CRA and IRS. So really understanding, what you need to do, protect yourself, double taxation, all those consideration. But once you get those questions answered, once you create the vehicle, now it's just, you just got to pour the gas, right, and then direct that into the right market. Fundamentally, like underwriting deals, very similar, right? We're underwrite, a property, income expenses, run it through all your, your thresholds from maintenance and repairs and so forth, and you've got your NOI and so forth. So the underwriting aspect is the same. It just comes down to really understanding from a taxation standpoint how to protect yourself, minimize the double taxation, and there are treaties in place between Canada and U.S. So understanding that point, setting up the right structure, right, and having the right support helps you. It may take, depending on what you're trying to create, it can take several months. So
Yeah.
you really want to get ahead of that because it's not, just you can open a bank T and then open a bank account, tomorrow type of thing. There are certain things you're going to have to apply for from the ITIN and so forth to get your EIN, to open a bank account, all that good stuff. But again, for my coaching that I do, I've got the resources, the preferred partners in place. So I'm just basically, connecting them, and away you go. And then once they've got everything set up, now we kind of determine, okay, which markets. But I've
Oh,
got,
sorry, Thomas. Just to pause you there.
yeah.
Would it be correct to say it's easier than ever for a Canadian to be a U.S. investor?
Oh yes. Absolutely. I
The
mean,
networks are all there more than ever.
yeah. And again, with just like, not to get into the whole political conversation, but I mean, I've never seen more Canadians wanting to move, right? And that's another aspect to kind of consider because they talk about visas and other, potential aspects to that could actually help you. So more than ever over the last 2 years, I've seen interest from Canadians to venture off. I think they've realized, the Canadian market in general is small when you compare it to the US. And my whole premise is like before you start into, start going to smaller markets like up north, middle of nowhere, you really have, a few hours away from you, a huge opportunity to venture into. And it's again, as you mentioned, the ease of doing it. It's not rocket science, and you can definitely do it. So I'm always encouraging Canadians, and I hear all kinds of stories. There's things that they're doing from short-term rentals, multifamilies, land development, and so forth. Definitely want to encourage Canadians.
I find Canadians, I've mentioned it many times on the show, is I find Canadians these days, like people from our communities, are their investing is getting more and more complicated every day. Like just like you started off, you were talking about like buying a duplex for like 225, a single family for like 140. I
Right.
was the same, right? That's all we needed to do. Now it's like put in a basement suite. Like now you got a garden suite. Now you got to turn one house into 5 units,
Yes.
or go develop a piece of land.
Yep.
And so many of these strategies now hinge on CMHC, because you mentioned
That's a
we
whole
have
other
two
conversation.
whole
That's
other
a whole other
conversation.
conversation. Yeah.
But two things
Leveraging and go
two things
ahead.
you said though, like you talked about like it does take a few months to create your U.S. entities, but my first thought was my entities will be created before someone can get a hearing for non-payment of rent.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean,
so someone who's waiting for the non-payment of rent hearing, go create your
yeah.
U.S. entities now.
Yeah. You can create your U.S. entities, get the financing, buy the properties,
Yeah,
just sit back. By the time, you're trying to get certain things done in Ontario, other parts of Canada,
yeah,
100%. And you have your own experience. You've got ventured off into the U.S., so
yes.
you've
Because I
got
just want
firsthand
easy.
experience.
I always
Yeah.
wanted easy. Remember we were both taught real estate should be boring, right? I know you
Yes.
chose to go full time. I want to keep it boring. I want to like, and then now I've had kids and I'm older. I'm cranky, so I want even less work to do. Um, but you mentioned how financing is similar. Now here, like for example, if you bought that 6 or 11 unit, like everyone's going through CMHC here, and I'm
Right.
hearing some of my friends are getting squeezed as well. One friend of mine on a CMHC MLI Select, he told me CMHC raised his cap rate by 1.5%. So effectively, his equity takeout was significantly smaller than what he had expected. My point is that
Right.
they changed the cap rate on him, so the financing is worse, and that'll probably hurt his appraisal as well for when he actually goes to resell it, because someone's
Yep.
going to want to pay him less. Right. How is financing in the States? Do you have to go through a CMHC type thing? You have to go through
Yeah.
the government in order to get any mortgages done?
Great. And this is a great conversation. I mean, CMHC, 'cause I have a lot of Canadians that I talk to. I have my own sentiment where it's like, leveraging 90, 95%.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the risk associated with that as the market shifts, you can easily be in negative value real quick. Um, Most of the people utilizing that strategy, it's like, you know, the benefit is that the amortization is pushed out so long. But the reality is you're not going to be selling that property anytime soon. I had one building that we owned a few years ago with some partners in Cambridge, and we had refinancing the CMHC. And then a few years later, we tried selling it. It was very difficult. I mean, there was even though we had the appraisal in place, the interest from investors, and this is before the market turned, the interest was very low. So we were kind of stuck with that property. We couldn't refinance it because it was a 10-year term, and we couldn't sell it. So we're just in a hold pattern. And on top of that, it was leveraged to the tilt. So now going back to your question about, what type of financing is available for Canadians. So we still have like the 1 to 4 units, they're that kind of world, There are some foreign investor products available for Canadians. They are designed for foreign nationals, so it's a little easier to secure those DSCR type of loans. So really underwriting the asset, and from there you're predominantly putting down roughly around 30%. So more traditional banking, right? Put down about 30%. Interest rates for a foreign national tend to be a little higher, so most likely at 1% higher than what we're paying as an American. But you can rinse and repeat that over and over again.
And that bears repeating. You can rinse and repeat this versus I
Yes,
was literally speaking to doctors this week who can't get more mortgages, who make absurd amounts of income. Uh, but
right.
versus how DSCR, debt service coverage ratio mortgages. Can you touch on how that works? How
Yeah,
because a lot of Canadians don't do commercial. A
right.
lot of Canadians aren't familiar with commercial financing, so because that's our equivalent. Can you explain how that works in the States, even
I
on the
mean, they're
floor
really
residential?
underwriting the asset. At the end of the day, every lender, and that's one thing I should say is like there are over 5,000 lenders in the US compared to Canada. You're talking about 32 if you factor in the credit unions. So, you've got such a wide um, opportunity and segment of different types of lenders, different types of products available, right? And I'm always building relation with different lenders. Even though I've been here for 10 years, there's new products, different lenders, they have different criterias. But in general, DSCR, you're basically analyzing, they're basically underwriting the asset, looking at how much income it makes versus expenses, utilizing, really a ratio of like 1.2 is kind of the typical target. From there, that you're able to secure the financing, underwriting you very little. I think at the end of the day, if you create the right entity, they could finance the property. There are nuances, there are challenges. We had a couple of our students where they had to kind of switch different lenders for whatever reason. And those are things that happen throughout the process without any real explanation why. But in general, um, the typical Canadian securing financing, and my whole thing is that start getting a few under your belt, build that track record because again, the relationships and experience will go a long ways into continuing to grow in the U.S. Especially if you're looking to get into into more commercial realm, right? And from there, even for myself, most of the deals I'm putting about 30% down. Right now, interest rates have come down slightly. And it all depends on, at what stage of the process I'm at. If I'm doing a value add, I may go after bridge financing. With bridges between 1 to max 3 years. And you're putting about 25-30% down, but they usually finance the construction, the renovation. So similar to kind of step programs that Scotia have, but at a larger scale. And I'll give you an example where we acquired a multifamily a few years ago for 1.8 million, 1.828 million, and the lender gave us about $250,000 basically in draws to do all the improvements that we need to do. Once we exhausted that, we refinanced out of the bridge. The bridge was around 12% interest rate, so it was expensive, right? But the property was still able to carry 12% interest, and we exhausted all that rehab budget. And then the property got appraised for 3.1, and then we refinanced it into a long-term stable loan. And what did that look like? Well, this was around this time last year when we refinanced it. Interest rates around 6.2, 6.3. And usually, typically, it's be a 5 or 10 year terms. We chose 5 because we're planning to refinance it again in a couple years. And sliding prepaid penalty. And that's agency debt. So that's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that type of financing. Those are kind of like, A lenders, government backed. And there's a lot of paperwork, so it takes months to secure that. So it'll be hard to kind of go into a deal securing that type of financing unless you're able to negotiate a long closing. But in terms of, again, the strategy, the size of the asset, all those factors come to play. But typically, you're looking at, you've got a number of options to pull financing from. Another option is like local credit unions or banks. So for the 11 unit that I acquired this year, I was too small to go into Fannie Freddie because they typically start around 1.1 kind of a loan of about over $1 million. Well, this 11-plex I acquired for 695 didn't fit. So we found a local bank, and they were willing to do 70% loan to value at a little bit higher interest rate. However, it's open, so you're not locked in. So we had a 7.4% interest rate, but it's open. So at any time we can refinance it, just a loan modification, and drop the rate, or take it to a different lender. So that was nice. I said, okay, a little higher interest rates, but it's open. So at the end of the day, it's a 5-year term. We'll see how things play out. Interests have come down. We're lower sixes. I've seen some high fives even of late. That might be surprising for Canadians, but typically interest rates are higher in the US than in Canada. Even going back, 10, 15 years ago, when I had properties, I always see in Canada, between US and Canada, there's always about a 1% difference. And now there might be even a little bit more, just to see how, just seeing how quickly, the Bank of Canada has been dropping rates in comparison to the US side of things.
You see, Canada's great. Your cheap interest rates, but it also created a bit of an asset bubble.
Right.
So it's unfortunate for the younger generation. Thomas, what are some shock items that Canadians have when they look at U.S. stuff? You mentioned interest rates. What else are they shocked about? Actually, let's talk about landlord rights. What kind of common question say I'm your tenant in Cleveland.
Yep.
Thomas, I don't want to pay you. I think the leak, the tap drips, so I'm going to withhold rent.
Right.
There's nothing you can do about it. That's what I'm just quoting.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
Now,
again,
Thomas, you're the landlord. What can you do about it?
yeah, great. Number one, got a local property manager, right? So they understand how to manage this
Right.
kind of situation very
Because
easily.
you cash flow enough that you can afford a property manager. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, typically, 3 days, you give a 3-day notice for not paying rent, and then from there they try and work with the tenant. Like what's going on? Is it a maintenance issue, or is it really just not paying for your own reasons? Then you've got people like partial payments. They'll give you like half month and then kind of rolls into next month. So we've been pretty lenient up till maybe about 2 months. Once they start kind of backlogging, you kind of see the writing on the wall where they're not going to be able to catch up. So at that point, we file for an eviction. Typically, we're able to secure a court date within 2 to 3 weeks, and then as the date comes up, the tenant already has been notified. So we're pretty much seeing like a 90% move out rate by the court date. They move out on their own. They don't even wait because number one, they know they're going to lose. And if it goes through the process, of a court date and they don't move out, it's happened a few times where the court would say, okay, they've got 2 weeks to move out, right? From basically from us securing their judgment in our favor, and then if we have to call a sheriff to come out, that sort of thing. But it's very rare for the most part.
So
I mean, at the end of the
clarify,
day,
the sheriff is the local police. It's not like LTB where they have their own law enforcement. This is the
100%.
local
But
police.
you see that entire process is like a month, right?
Right.
A maximum 6 weeks. So, I mean, it's a huge difference compared to what I've experienced in Ontario, right?
A month.
A month.
You have resolution in 1 month.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Thomas, I'm still the tenant now. I decided that my career focus is now selling drugs in the property, and even though I make lots of money, I'm not paying you rent. So there's nothing you can do about it. What would you do?
Yeah, typical process, similar process, right? Basically, file an eviction, and there's just different reasons behind it. If this one's selling drugs or doing some illegal activities, then again, that process is very similar to how I mentioned, and we've had a few instances like that. If it's illegal activity or they've got like an animal like a dog, we've had issues where they've got a dog that's just like issues with other tenants or throwing garbage.
Excessive noise? Yeah.
Excessive noise, or their dogs were like kind of like scaring other tenants, that sort of thing.
In Ontario, there's nothing we could do about that.
No, or people having like too many people.
Human right is you can have a dog.
Right. I mean, it's just much more common sense, right? Like all of a sudden you've got 10 people living in a unit. It's like, what's going on, right? We leased this to one person. Why are there 10 people here? So all those kind of issues, it just as a landlord, you've got much more control and predictability. So that's why I say the risk factor is significantly less in these landlords friendly markets. I mean, I've got people say, "Oh, Thomas, look at this 10-plex in Ontario. If we got the rents up to market, this probably worth like triple the value." I'm like, "Yeah, but good luck. I mean, they're paying $600 when it should be like more like $1,500. I mean, those people are never gonna leave. Cash for keys, it used to work. It no longer works unless you're really gonna open your pockets. Versus a place like Ohio where it's like, all right, we buy a Templex. Right now they're paying 500-600 bucks. Well, within the first year, we can probably turn over 2-3 units, right? So over the next 2, 3, 4 years, we should easily be able to turn over the entire building. So much more predictable, lower risk, and from an opportunity standpoint, it's okay. This property should be easily worth X in a 3 or 4 year time period. So that's where I like it. I mean, as an investor, you're trying to lower your risk. You're trying to have that predictability, and that's what this type of market offers.
I had a question. I forgot what it was. Oh, sorry. You gave the example. Say 10 people are living in a property.
Yeah,
Could you charge more rent?
you could, but typically, do you want to? I mean,
Okay.
once I go down that
Extreme
path,
example.
yeah,
So Thomas, I'm your tenant. I don't do drugs anymore, but I'm gonna have my brother and his wife move in and their kid. Is there anything you can do about
yeah.
that?
I mean, what would normally happen? My PM will say, "This is the situation you have. How do you want to handle it?" And we'll kind of walk through what are our options, right? If someone's like, "Well, we'll raise the rent," if they're willing to pay more rent, then we'll allow the situation to happen, right? If it's like, you know what, they're just too problematic, they've had issues with other people, or it's a repeat offender type of thing. Like we had a similar issue like 8 months ago, stop paying rent and then kind of catch up, then we may just evict them. But that's why it's like we have options. So
Right.
the PM will say, "What do you want to do?" And we'll say, "Let's walk through the different options." And then from there, he's like, "All right, if this person has someone moving with them, and we're gonna say you got to pay an extra $100 a month or $200 a month,
Yeah. And what if I say
they
no? What if I say no? I'm not paying the extra 100, $2, $100 a
that's
month.
fine. Just thank you very much. At the end of the day, if they're either going against what the lease agreement has, then we file, eviction, or we just wait till the lease is over, right? And that's the beauty about this kind of market where they sign a 1 year lease. So the worst scenario is like you have them only in the property for a year. You don't have to renew that lease, right? It goes to month, and then once it's month to month, then they're literally out. You can get them out like within the next month.
Right. And that was in Bill 60. It didn't make it through in Bill 60. I don't know
Right.
if you heard that stuff in Ontario.
Recently, I kind of heard a little bit about that. Certain things passed and certain things didn't, right?
Yeah. So the original intent was to get away, no more month to month, lease ends,
Right.
which I thought was brilliant. If the intention was to grandfather existing leases, and then like Doug Ford said, the intention of the Bill 60 was to get more property owners to become landlords. You
Right.
need to get you need to protect their rights. Like
Yes.
take like a single mom, for example, and she has a basement apartment, right? You need to encourage her to rent out that basement apartment rather than just like vacant unit tax. Right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
single mom, try renting out your apartment. If you don't like it, they have to leave it in the lease. Well, no,
Yes.
that's gone now.
Yeah.
So then the unit will just stay vacant.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, will Ontario ever progress to a point where it just
No,
leans more
we're
towards
going the other
landlords?
way.
Yeah. It's the likelihood is like next to zero.
Like if we've gone the other way, like
Yeah.
anti-renovation bylaws are growing. Like it may even become a provincial thing eventually. I won't be surprised if it becomes a provincial thing. And rent
Yep.
control's already like we can't.
Two and a half
I had
percent. 2.5% coming up next year.
is it 2.5? Yeah.
I think it's like that.
Yeah.
Two and a
Yeah.
half.
I wish inflation was 2.5.
Oh man.
Thomas, what other objections do Canadians have with investing in the States?
I think they sometimes think like every market's the same. I think it's really important for them to understand. I mean, it's completely different all across the country. I mean, California is completely different than Texas, completely different than like Georgia, completely different than like Ohio. So
It's
that's
like
really
saying Hamilton
important.
on Ottawa are the same. Like,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really important for Canadians to understand. Just don't blanket the US all into one. It's literally like 50 countries. So I know we get tied up into the
24.
news, right? I mean,
County,
counties, yeah, counties. Like, I mean, that's another thing. Like, even like within Cleveland, properties I have in Cleveland proper versus just outside the border into some of the suburb cities, there's some nuances to really understand. Like, there's like HVAC certification and other lead paint certification that Cleveland has recently introduced. So those are just like more cash grabs. They kind of like use it underneath because premise of protecting tenants. But again, it's all these fees. Well, if you're on a street over and now you're in a different city, right? Technically, I mean, you don't have those things. So again, it's really important for you to understand those nuances. Property tax. So it's not like there's one tax across the entire city. I mean, Cleveland is similar to the GTA. You've got Toronto proper, and you've all like Mississauga, all these cities around. So every little city has their own tax rate, and some of them can be significantly different. So you really need to understand and dive in and understand what is the tax rate, in those particular areas for the property, and how often, again, how often do they change the tax rate? For instance, California, people have something called Proposition 13. So people have locked in their tax. If you don't move, you got pretty much paying the same amount you're paying from when you bought it. It's just minimum increases. So some people are bought their homes in the 70s. They're paying peanuts compared to someone who just moved in next door, right? So their property rate changes upon a sale versus places like Ohio where it's every 3 years, right? They'll do an assessment and then increase the rates, which is I think similar to Ontario, right? There's you guys do assessments there as well, so that's important criteria. And I think one other thing, I don't know if you want to touch upon the Section 8 stuff, but that's a
Yes, please.
whole
Yes,
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it
So
used to be a really hot item. I just find real estate investors, well, some like, the condo story in Toronto and probably Vancouver as well is like investors just wanted to buy what the cheapest thing was, which was bachelor units and condos. And in Hamilton, they would buy like the extreme north end,
yep,
like they'd be buying houses for like 60, 70 grand. And across the street would be the steel mill, which is a
yes,
lovely neighbor to have.
right.
But yeah, tell for those who don't know, tell us about Section 8.
Yeah, so Section 8 is a program, basically government subsidized vouchers where the government gives out these vouchers if you qualify. It's really almost like winning the lottery because there's a huge demand for getting free rent. So it's usually set for low income or disabled or old age. And if you qualify, basically the government's willing to pay a portion of your rent up to 100%. So I initially, didn't invest with Section 8 because of the stigma that, oh, you're dealing with the roughest profile tenant, right? Um, but then, interesting enough, talking to different property managers, and if you have one that really understands the system and they're able to kind of like, work in your favor, what we discovered is that Section 8 tends to pay higher rent than self-paying people. So then we start going down this avenue of getting Section 8 tenants. There's pros and cons to both, but again, as an investor, you're always weighing, each variable. So when it comes to Section 8, we're like, all right, government's paying us directly. Great. So we don't have to worry about these people losing a job or not paying rent. It's coming directly from us. Are they paying 100%? Usually it's anywhere, our experience is like 60, 70, 80%. There's always some portion the tenant has to pay, but sometimes they don't pay it, but still the rent that you're getting from the Section 8 is still higher, right, than what a self-paying would be. So you kind of, you just assume that and run with it. What we've seen over the last year, right, we've had an election about a year ago, and right around that time, and as this new administration has done significant changes, funding for the Section 8 has kind of slowed down. So we've even got letters from the local agencies, right? Because these are managed by local agencies, even though the funding comes from the feds. And they basically said that please don't raise rents Right now, we've received less funding and we've got less people on staff, so it's been a little bit more challenging dealing with Section 8 because of less staff. It's a slower process, which to begin with was already a slower process, right? Now, I'll run through that scenario real quick. So you got less people, slower process, less money. So again, is something as an investor be prepared. Also, the location of the property, because you could have a property in a B area versus one in a C or C minus or even D area, and the Section 8 is going to be completely different because again, you're dealing with people, right? So we've got properties in B areas with Section 8, and we have minimum issues versus we've got one particular building in a rougher area, and the experience has been, drastically different. Higher turnaround, the tenants that property attracts is just lower quality. And what we discovered is that, the Section 8 has been substantially slow. It could take months, right? From the time an application is submitted, before they send an inspector out, before they qualify, make you an offer, you're going months into it. Meanwhile, a self-paying person can move into the property like within a week or two. So you have to really weigh that option out. And, but through all that, we still have Section 8, but we're just being a little bit more selective. But again, with how the economy is playing out, I think it's really important for as an investor to kind of balance that, because self-paying people can lose jobs, right? So that's the caveat. You have to really understand that. So we got some buildings which are like a 50-50 mixture between self-paying and Section 8. And really, I lean on my team. There are some PMs, they don't want to go through the Section 8 process because there's more paperwork and more time and issues. So they want to stay away from it because they're not really getting paid more, versus other ones who are really understand that system, have built those relationships with the local agency, the staff and the agencies. And there's a few different ones. Like when you say Section 8, traditionally every county has their own kind of department. In Cleveland, it's like CMHA, Cleveland Municipal Housing Authority. But then there's other programs like Eden and so forth, where like battered women or disabled. So those agencies may have different source of funding. So again, when we have a vacant unit, and we're saying we're accepting vouchers, right? We'll get a mixture of people applying for that vacant unit, from self-paying people who have jobs to people who have a voucher, and then we go through it. And then from there, they'll approach me and say, okay, what do you want to do? We've got 2 people self-paying, maybe we get $900. But then we have a couple of vouchers, and they're willing to pay $1,300, right? So now you're like, well, that's significantly higher. But then if it's like going to take 2-3 months, you're losing time. And then that profile, you may have to get rid of them after a year or so, right? So there's that turnover to consider. Versus someone who's not self-paying, they can move in
Just to
quicker.
pause you. For the Canadian listening, understand Americans hate turnover. Versus in BC, Quebec, Ontario, we love turnover because the Americans don't have rent control versus we do. So that's why it's completely different investing environment. Because you said turnover, like, oh, Ontario investors like, oh, that's great,
Yeah.
they're turning over.
Yeah. No, we don't want turnover. I mean, you're losing, you're losing income, right? Those months that you have that property sitting vacant, I mean, you're losing money. So, yeah, we want to minimize vacancies as much as possible. So sometimes, and you see it from more of the old timers, where they've got 100% occupancy, but the rents are significantly low. But they don't mind, because they're like, I'd rather lease these units out for like $700, $800, which I know I could be getting 900,000, but it's 100% occupied. I don't have to worry about the turnovers and so forth. And guys, again, with turnovers, right? Not only are you losing the income, but there's the turnover repairs you have to do, right? So you're redoing the units, all that stuff. So now you're out significant more capital versus just accepting someone, paying a little bit less rent, but they're in there for long term.
Again, it is such a different environment that Canadian has to adapt to. Like no real U.S. real estate investor wants turnover, versus here we pay people to leave $10,000 to $30,000. Leave, please. Oh,
there was one incident.
$30,000 to leave.
When you just reminded me, there was one incident 2 years ago where we had a problem tenant, and then the PMs were like, "Listen, it's going to take weeks for us to get the court date, but we could maybe pay this person like some money to leave, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, but we would really feel bad asking you, but we're talking like, I'm like, how much money are we talking about? They're like, $500 or something. And I'm laughing. I'm like, $500? Are you kidding me? I mean, they'll leave this weekend. It's like, it's almost a joke when you compare it, where we're paying, if you're paying tens of thousands of dollars for someone to leave in Ontario versus only a 4 hour drive. Like, I'm talking like a 1 hour flight, like it's really close, where it's a completely different landscape. Completely different.
Texas is like like a less than 3 hour flight, but yeah.
Right?
Or even North Carolina. It'd be a lovely place to visit.
Listen, I mean, wherever you're based, if you're, let's say you're in Toronto, right? Or Vancouver, the likelihood is very high you're going to be investing somewhere that you can't drive regularly, right? So if it's a couple hours away by drive or a couple hours away by flight or across the country, so you're forced to start creating a team. So what's the difference if we're gonna invest a couple hours away to just make that couple hours away across the border, right? That's what it comes down to. So yeah, again, it's not. I mean, there's pros and cons to weight. There's initial, maybe the connections and the accountants and lawyers that you're gonna be dealing with. But again, if you're going from investing in Canada, you already have some experience in Canada. Now you're venturing into a new market. There are just a few things to really factor in, and then away you go.
Mm-hmm.
But again, deal hunting is going to be the same. You're still looking for good opportunities. There's still the whole negotiation stuff we haven't talked about, right? So really, it's not just like, okay, I'm all set. Just go pluck and grab the first property. Fine. No, I mean, you have to underwrite it, negotiate, and determine if it's a good opportunity. And of course, another factor that I always get, oh, the dollar exchange, right? The dollar exchange. I'm like, yes, that is something, right? I mean, what's the exchange right now? Like it's around 70 cents, right?
Yeah,
So
71. Yeah, it bounced back a
yeah.
little bit, but it's still low.
So we've seen kind of a pullback. It was more like around 76, 77 for the longest time, and then over the last year, we've seen the kind of dollar come down, the Canadian dollar, that is. Um, Now, with that, yes, there's the exchange rate that you have to factor in, but your money's earning in U.S. dollars, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, is how big of an issue is that? And then at some point, if you want to repatriate the capital, if you time it well and the Canadian dollar goes back up, then you may have another gain there, right? So there are factors to consider when you're talking about the dollar and exchange rate. It's not all negative because people are
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, my, that's $100,000 US. That's like 130, $135,000 Canadian that to bring. I see. I understand, right? But now you're earning a US dollar, so that's $1,000 a month US
Mm-hmm.
versus $1,000 Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
It's
I
a
think
funny
that ends
thing.
up.
Like Canadians get stuck on the exchange rate from like 2009, 2010, 11. Yet none of us get stuck on real estate prices from back then or the stock
Mhm.
market prices. None of us are waiting for that to come back.
Right.
Yet I find people are waiting for that to come back on the exchange rate. And then just for fun, so I have a lot of friends who study crypto closely, and I don't know if you've been following the USDT, the stable coin from that the White House endorses.
Okay. I haven't.
Check it out because there's a
Okay.
reason why the White House endorses it. Is because it's backed by U.S. Treasuries. So the more USDT that people in the world own, so again, it's a stable coin. It's equivalent of the U.S. dollar. You can do it from your phone. You don't need a bank. So like you get it. Like again, I always say this to Canadians. Outside of Canada, how many people of this planet want to hold Canadian dollars over U.S. dollars?
Yeah.
Right? Would you
It's
find
true.
1 in 100? Maybe you find some Trump haters somewhere. Like, yeah, I'll take the Canadian dollar. Like, they probably won't even like, pay me in
Right.
Canadian dollars. No, they probably wouldn't. Still pay me U.S. dollars. But again, my point is that from like the rest of the world, like it's very common for people to hold U.S. dollars. Um,
100%.
except in a lot of countries, it's government regulated. So if they just do stablecoin,
Yeah.
cryptocurrency, so my point is, the more people, and it will be, I think it will be very significant, the number of people who will hold the USDT, and then that will in turn create demand for U.S. Treasuries,
Mm.
which will in turn, like cement the U.S. dollar as the global currency, global reserve currency. because
Yep.
everyone wants US dollars.
I mean, we've all traveled and you've gone to so many different countries,
Yeah,
Caribbean or wherever, and they're all
yeah.
accepting US dollar.
Even Mexico. Don't pay me in
Yeah.
peso, pay me in
Yeah.
US dollars. You go even in Europe all the time.
Yep.
Like, it's funny. Like I have friends who bought property in Italy. Italian real estate is priced in US dollars. Right? It's all over the world. So like,
Yeah.
I know people talk about the BRICS and whatnot, but like those guys are all printing money like crazy.
Hmm.
More so than the Americans. But anyways, my point, where I'm getting to is because of the what I expect for more demand for U.S. Treasuries is our dollar may be fare even worse than it is
Right.
today, right? Which so anyone who bought today will be happy when our dollar tanks.
Right. Right. Any of my investors who invested with me like a
Yeah,
year ago,
yeah,
right? They're in a better position now.
yeah, yeah. Or even 2 years ago,
Or
better,
even 2 years ago. Yep.
and then potentially 2 years from now, they would have been better.
Yep.
Yeah, because again, who in the world is buying Canadian currency
Right.
and debt?
Yeah.
Right? You know, we refuse to trade with people. We won't sell them oil or our natural gas. So like, why would they buy our dollars? Anyways, I digress. Uh, Thomas, tell me about your coaching. Tell me what you do with your coaching with Wealth Genius.
Sure, sure. So about what 4 years ago, partnered up with Alfonso, who's the founder of WealthGenius. And initially, I had hired him as my real estate coach. I saw what he was doing, and I wanted to kind of grow. And within like 3, 4 months, he kind of realized the value I bring, and we partnered up to create the U.S. arm of WealthGenius. So I've been doing speaking engagements, events, and through that process, created a coaching program underneath the WealthGenius umbrella and really helping Canadians invest in the U.S. That's kind of my niche. So I'm a U.S. partner for the group, but at this point we've expanded. Now we've got several Americans as well. So we've got hundreds of Canadians and Americans within the group who are focusing on investing across the U.S. And for me, I mean, it's been great. Again, bring the value to them and really putting the pieces together to get these Canadians to invest in the US. We just did a 3-day virtual boot camp for Canadians last week. So we spoke 3 days. So we do virtual events, we do live in-person events. I was just in Mississauga about a month ago. We had the Expand conference. You were there, and that was,
Yeah, it's a great
again,
conference, great
yeah,
vibes.
yep, yep, yeah. Big event to bring in and multiple speakers, like 30, 40 speakers over the course of 3 days. And again, it's a network, educational and network, but through that, organically, people connect and magic happens. I tell people all the time, the magic of Wealth Genius is the people. People are partnering up, helping each other, supporting one another. So it's been a great journey and a lot of formalized a lot of great bonds and relationships. We've done traveling. We've gone to Belize together. We do like masterminds outside in different countries. We had a bunch of people come here to California a few years ago. We do events, again, all across, not just North America. Alfonso was in in Japan this year and somewhere else. I mean, he's always traveling. So it's been great, but we have a vision to continue to expand the group all across the U.S. We've got a big event coming up in February in Los Angeles. So again, we're going to continue to grow out this group and help. And again, the value proposition is as we get more Americans, it's only going to benefit the Canadians, right? They're going to have more resources, more connections in the US. So now you can pick up the phone, literally call our members in Florida or in Texas and just say, hey, listen, I'm looking at this deal. What do you think about it? You want to partner up? Can you drive by for me? All those benefits. So it's been great. I mean, and for me, kind of segue over the last year, I wrote a book. So that's kind of like, through this journey of coaching and the value I bring, I wrote right here. This is the book, Borderless Wealth. So this is my book. I just felt, it was time for me to put together something that anyone, I mean, it's mainly geared towards Canadians to really help them, have a kind of a playbook. So really wrote it in a simple term. Anyone can read it, probably over like a day, and understand at least high level how to get going in investing in the US. And from there, if they want formalized mentorship, they can reach out. Or they can, if they need connections, they can reach out as well. But again, here you go. Thank you. And
Borderlesswealth.ca. Yeah.
yep,
Oh, you offer a free
boriswealth.ca.
chapter as well.
Yeah, you can get a few free chapters. It's available on Amazon, and I'm continuously adding more resources. So if you go in the resource section, Irwin, there's going to be additional um, guides for Canadians. There's a couple of free ones, but then if you order the book, there's a special code inside the book that will unlock additional guides for you Canadians. But again, just want to continue to bring value to people, and I just felt like putting into a book format would do that. I mean, I brought a bunch of books to the Expand conference last month, and then basically sold out within a couple hours. So it's been received well, and again, it's available on Amazon. So that's been, yeah, my latest project, writing a book. It's not something that I was formally trained in, but it took me some time and hired a publisher. But really kind of put all my knowledge, into this book, and be able to, really focus on helping Canadians.
You mentioned helping Canadians. Like, I literally just got off a call with a couple from Montreal, and they asked, "How can I help you?" And I told them, if you can just tell your friends to not be local landlords, so that way they never end up in the tenant tribunal,
Right.
you would help them so much.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you just need someone to just open up your mind to realize, oh, I know I could do that, right? Or it just seems so hard. But it's like, no, this is people are doing this all the time, and this is you just need that
Mhm.
guidance, or you need you need someone to open up that door for you to get, to push you and encourage you to go through it, and then you realize there's a whole other world here. So yeah, I mean,
You,
that's. Go
you
ahead.
say hard. Like my colleague Tim just posted a story. Tenanted properties. I don't know which market. I'm gonna guess Kitchener. You know where Kitchener is. He's posting how tenanted properties sell for 8% less and take 60% longer to sell.
Wow.
So you want to talk about hard? I'd
Yeah.
say it's hard to make money as a landlord in Ontario.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's challenging because you don't know what you're going to inherit. That's the issue, right? What kind of a problem tenant, and then it's like they're paying less than market, so like trying to increase the value, or there's just all these things that are holding you down to really grow and to really fast track. And why do we do this? Like, why invest in real estate? I mean, obviously most of it are doing to create a future for our lives, our families, to kind of stack these bricks to kind of create a legacy, but financial freedom, all these things. But I mean, when you've got so many things going against you, I mean, it's really discouraging, right? And then you get burned a couple times, you're like, I'm done, right? So I just, again, the message here is that you know don't limit yourself only to one market, and like you said as well, Irwin, explore other places, because
Mhm.
the grass can be significantly greener.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier. I remember you said it, that as you bring on more Americans, as Canadian investors network with more Americans, I can't wait for them to see the looks on their faces. Andrew Kim and I were in Atlanta, and we were meeting with property managers, huge ones, huge ones. They had massive budgets. Three of them were flown in from three different cities in the country to meet with us.
Wow.
Anyways, uh, Andrew's like just making he's teasing me. He goes, hey, talk to Erwin. He's an Ontario landlord. He'll tell you what it's like. So I tell him what it's like. My duplex it's $1 million, and if they don't pay rent, it'll take 8 to 12 months maybe to get them out, and then just to hear someone repeat it back to you. Uh, you mean your house is $1 million and they don't have to pay you rent? And like, yeah, and if And if they don't pay me rent, I still have to pay the property manager. So the property manager says then how is he incented to keep your property rented? Like, this is the property manager saying,
Right, right. It's wild.
all right.
I mean, if you're only operating that market, let's say Ontario, it's like you're so indoctrinated. You think this is how it is everywhere, right? You don't know the difference until you step out of it and you're like, wait a minute, like there are differences somewhere else. So yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned like 8%, a tenanted house sells for 8% less. Say the average price in Kitchener is like 700,000. 8% of 700,000 is 56,000.
Right.
So a cash for keys of 30 grand is not a bad deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hope no tenants are listening to this.
No, it's true. I mean, but the cat's out of the bag. Most people these days, they know,
Yeah, it's all over Facebook. And
there was a time, maybe 10 years ago, you could pay 3, 4, 5 grand and get a tenant out, but those days are long gone in Ontario. I mean, it's going to cost big bucks.
Thomas, thank you for being so generous with your time. Again, you're taking time indoors away from the beach to be with us.
I'm gonna go ladder up my suntan lotion now. So yeah, you're taking me away from all that.
Hey, what's the weather today?
Well, it's a chilly 75 degrees, which is what 23, about 23 degrees Celsius. Yeah, I may have to actually consider wearing a jacket. But I mean, it's funny. I mean, I keep all my coats and gloves at my parents' house in Toronto. No, I mean, ultimately, I'm just thankful. The weather here is consistent. That's what it is. I mean, you guys have decent summers, but I mean, this time of the year it gets drastically colder real quick. So I mean, I don't miss that. I really don't miss shoveling and the salt and stuff.
I shoveled this morning, and my kids went to school in snow pants. Yeah. Thomas, two things. Where can people connect with you? Borderlesswealth.ca. Anything else you want to share?
Instagram, Real Thomas Lorini. You can follow me there as well. And VentureCode Capital is my private investment firm. And you can go on that, venturecodecapital.com, and get some information on some upcoming projects, or just put yourself, start receiving some emails of updates. And when something comes up, you may want to consider investing, let me know.
And thank you for being a friend to share, being a strategic partner, inviting us to speak to your students as well, teaching them subject to, which is possibly one of my favorite strategies ever, which doesn't exist in Canada. Any final words you want to share with the investor?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of covered a lot. I think ultimately encouraging you Canadians that investing in US is available. You've got people who can help you, and we've got a track record of many successful students and people in our network who are doing it. So again, don't be discouraged if you've had some bad experiences in Ontario or other parts in Canada. Don't give up. But you really consider alternative areas, alternative markets, and the U.S. is just one of them. It's just, again, right beside you, a few hours away, 10 times the size, and you've got a lot of, good things in place in the right markets to consider. And you got, again, support to help you, so you're not alone. Yeah. So definitely reach out, to people who can to help you, guide you and to set you up for the best success as possible. And yeah, again, thank you, Arun, for this opportunity as well. And it's been great to connect and know each other for a long time, and just kind of see our journeys kind of continue to grow and cross paths in various times. It's been great.
Yeah, we settled on boring cash flowing real estate, just in a different place.
That's it. Awesome.
Thomas, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
All right, friends, that wraps up another episode of the Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians. Hope you got as much out of this one as I did. Remember that whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, there's always something new to learn, and it's always about building that practical knowledge base that gets you closer to financial freedom. If you found value today, please do us a favor and leave us a review or a rating, share this episode with a friend, or better yet, join our community of real estate investors who are taking action and making moves. And hey, if there's a topic you want us to cover, or there's a certain guest you'd like us to have on the show, drop me a line. My DMs are open on social social media, reply to this email that this has arrived on. I'm not hard to find. You know, we're all about getting you the unfiltered truth to help you on your journey. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay smart, stay curious, and keep building that future. Catch you later.